morning, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel, and this is my way of participating in the 31 days of witchcraft. These are a set of prompts created by Heather Carter. I will have a link to her video down below. Forgive any wiggling. I do these I've been doing these prompts in my car early in the morning before coffee. I don't know what I've been thinking, but it seems to have been going okay, so I'm just rolling with it. These are some really fantastic prompts, and I had intended to do these videos every single day. The last couple weekends have gotten away from me, and this last weekend especially, because it was a 3-day weekend here in Canada. I believe in the US it'll be a 3-day weekend next weekend. So I didn't record these for 3 days. So now I have 4 prompts to catch up on in one video, so wish me luck. So let's see if I can remember them all. Uh-oh. Okay, so the first one is, do you like to do your spell work in the daytime or in the nighttime, and why? I think is basically that prompt. I don't have a really strong preference. I do know that if I see if I can talk. I do tend to do my rituals at night, but I think that's more to do with when I can carve out that kind of me time, and less to do with the time of day. I've done a lot of rituals at night. I've also done some rituals during the day, mostly group rituals where they're happening at parks or places like that. But most of the time I'd say I do them at night. And again, I think that's just a timing thing. From a spell work perspective, I will do them any dang old time of the day that I want. I would like to eventually incorporate more I can't talk. You know what? I'm going to have a sip of my coffee because it is dang early in the morning when I'm recording this. And see if that helps. But I do feel like I would like to eventually incorporate more astrology into my spell work, into my magic. Things like the planetary hour and that sort of thing can really boost magical workings. And I would eventually like to pull that in, which would affect, of course, the time of day that I'm doing spell work, or perhaps even the day of the week that I'm doing spell work. And these timing questions may come up later, and I haven't looked at the whole list, so I'll leave it there. Day or night, doesn't really matter for spell work. It tends to be nighttime for ritual work just because of timing. Yeah, no real preferences there. Uh-oh. Casting a circle. Oh boy, we're testing my memory first thing in the morning to try to remember 4 prompts. Okay, so the second prompt that I missed, which was Sunday's prompt, was, do you cast a circle when you do workings, I believe? So sometimes I will cast a circle around myself as a protective space, usually if I'm doing what I would consider like a working. And for me, that's something that involves multiple steps. Sometimes it involves writing a petition, creating a sigil, burning something in my cauldron like a sigil or a petition, creating some kind of protection, some sympathetic magic around protection, such as charging an item, that sort of thing. Usually when I do that kind of magic, I'm doing several things, kind of like cooking a meal. I'll have several things that build up to a final kind of component to either create and charge an item, or to transform / burn / release an item. So when I have a multi-step magical process like that, I do tend to do that within a circle that I've cast. And when it comes to, and sometimes I will also cast a circle just around an item that I'm working on. So I've done that before too, where this is a little different. It's, rather than a whole full circle around myself, I might create a small circle, like say on a tabletop or a surface, just around a particular item to keep that item in a neutral, pure space while I imbue it with my intent. I've gotten very loosey-goosey with my circle casting, as far as when I do and when I don't, as I've gotten older. And part of that is because I'm a lot more confident now that the spaces that I work, which is generally within my home, are relatively already imbued with protection or already safe, because I do so much magic around those kinds of ideas already in my home. If I were to ever be practicing outside of my home, I would always cast a circle. So if I happen to be in a hotel, or I'm traveling, or I'm in an outdoor space, typically I would always do protection, like a circle of some kind in those spaces. The way that I see circles, essentially, is like a container. So sometimes I'm casting a circle to be a container for a particular working so that I can build the energy throughout the working. And then once it's had its chance to really either do what it's supposed to do already within the context of that circle, or when I'm ready to release it to do its work in the world, then I would pull down the circle and let it go. So it to me, that's how I see a circle, is like a container. Now, the other way I see a circle is as protection. So if I need a container, or if I need a feeling of that extra protection, then I will cast a circle. If I'm doing a ritual, such as to honor a Sabbath, to meditate and work with a spirit guide, to go into the astral for any way, shape, for any reason, not way, shape, or form, to go into the astral for any reason, these things I definitely always cast a circle for, particularly because when I'm in ritual space, I feel like I'm a little bit more vulnerable because my attention isn't always in the present or in the mundane, and I feel like it's important to have that circle around me. And if I'm ever trying to connect or commune with something on another realm, such as spirit, or go on to the astral, that sort of thing, I do think there's also a vulnerability there that I want to be and feel particularly safe for. I think that about covers it. But yeah, I'm going to be talking a lot more about circle casting when I get to I'm going to do an entire live chat on circle casting and ways to cast circle and what that looks like and how to visualize and all that kind of stuff. I'll be doing one of those in my Eclectic Witchcraft series probably pretty soon. So keep an eye out for that, because I'll be talking in a lot more depth about my experiences of circle casting, the different ways I've circle cast over the years, and sort of what I find to be effective methods, all that kind of stuff. So I'll get into more detail then. Okay, the third prompt that I have to catch up on is, do you incorporate herbs and crystals into your practice? Yes, very much yes. And what are your favorites? Crystals, I have a few favorites. And I will link there. I will link up in the cards my whole crystal collection video, which I made at the beginning of this year, and I think I released it onto the channel sometime this spring. I can't remember when, but I will link it because I go through all of my crystals and I definitely talk in more detail about them in that video. But I will say there's a few that are very, very close to me. One is a clear quartz point that is quite a chunky little guy. He's like probably that thick or so. I just made that. Anyway, so I have that one, and I've had that one. That was the very first crystal that I ever purchased, other than small tumbled stones. Like, it was the very first, like, what felt like a crystal. Do you know what I mean? That I ever purchased. And I've used that in any major working I've ever done, as well as in pretty much almost any tarot reading I've ever done, and definitely in every past life or soul deep kind of reading or working I've ever done. So that's my, like, primary, I would say, most bonded to me crystal. Anybody who's booked a reading with me has probably seen it at some point. Even if I don't show it in as a crystal that's supporting the reading, it's always nearby. Anyway, yes, definitely yes, that is a favorite. A couple of other favorites. I have a vibrated rose quartz and a vibrated carnelian. Those are both very much favorites. I'd never seen a vibrated crystal before until it was either last year or the year before. And those two crystals, which are both vibrated, they're like it's as if they've been polished. The process is different. They're like chunky, raw pieces of crystal. All of the edges on them are softened, though, and not through a normal tumbling process, but through a vibratory process. That's all I know. And so they have a very natural, chunky kind of shape. And they have points, but their points and their edges are just a little bit softer. Like if you sanded a piece of, like, let's say you had a piece of wood that was shaped like a crystal, and you just lightly sanded all the edges, that's kind of what it feels like. But I love the way that they feel, very natural and very raw, and a little bit less worn down. I don't know how else to describe it, but they seem to have retained more of their potency. If I could get more big vibrated chunks of crystal, I would have them. I would have an amethyst, I would have a smoky quartz, I would have a bunch of them. But those are the only two I found so far, and I haven't really encountered them online or anywhere else yet. So anyway, that was a lot to babble about vibrated crystals, but those are among my favorites. And in general, rose quartz has always been a favorite crystal. It really supports, it's easy to find, it's not terribly expensive, and it very much supports love, anything matters of the heart. But specifically for me, it's been an important stone for me to work with for self-love and gentleness and self-care. And those are very important principles in my life and in my practice. So I've always really been drawn to rose quartz. Carnelian I found to be a really wonderful balance and accompaniment to rose quartz, because I feel like carnelian brings courage and fire and will and drive and confidence and some of the fiery energies. And so to me, rose quartz is very watery and carnelian is very fiery, and bringing them together just creates a really beautiful balance that I really enjoy and that I often bring in to support client readings, particularly when we're looking at matters of self-worth or self-love or self-care. I tend to bring both of those stones in, not every single time, but often. I've got a lot of favorite crystals, to be honest. I love the different colors and types of calcite. I feel like that's a very versatile stone, and the different colors make it really usable for different purposes. You have pink manganese calcite, you have orange calcite, you have honey calcite, which is really beautiful. You have blue calcite, and you can imagine that each of these, there's even a, I think it's called, I've heard it called, I want to say like blood calcite. It's like a very irony red color, like a rusty irony color, probably because of iron, probably. But I don't know that for sure. And so you have all these different colors you can pull from for calcite. There's a green calcite. So you have almost the entire rainbow. I don't think there's a purple calcite. But you have almost the entire rainbow represented. So you can work with colors through that one singular stone in its various forms. So I have all of those colors of calcite. I really enjoy working with that stone. And as far as like beefy, more protective stones, I really like, I like obsidian. I like smoky quartz for shadow work. Okay, I need to stop because I will talk about crystals this whole time and I need to not do that. I've got lots of favorites and I like to incorporate, I don't have a particular, like when it comes to magical work, I don't have a particular crystal that's like my go-to for incorporating. I tend to have a lot of small tumbles or a lot of small crystal chips and things like that. There are a few, I think, good all-rounders if you have little crystal chips that you can put into oils, bath salts that you are going to use in a sachet. I don't know if you want that going down your drain. And what else have I used the little chips in? Oils. Oh, I've used them in little spell sachets or like spell pouches. And those three that I have that I use a lot are rose quartz, amethyst, and I believe the third one, it's a prosperity stone, and I think it's a jade. And they're just little chips, and those are perfect for that. I also have some little sunstone chips, some little quartz chips, or small tiny little points, and those are really great. I also have calcite chips, I believe. And between those, I have lots to put into actual like items that I'm making that I want to charge with crystals. So I have those, like working with those. Herbs, okay. I have a lot of herbs. And I enjoy working with all of them. If I had to pick a couple of favorite herbs, I would have to say, wow, that's hard. I worked with a lot of sage, but actually I don't really anymore. Man, that's tough. I'm very, I kind of use herbs in my practice like you would use spices in the kitchen. So I don't tend to use just like one herb. I almost always will, like if I want to have a particular working, I'll look up herbs that are associated with the goal that I have. And I'll maybe pick 2 or 3, sometimes more, because why not more? And I tend to incorporate those into my practice. So I mean, I love jasmine, and I do have some jasmine buds, just precious few remaining. And jasmine is great for sensuality and for connecting to self and for, I think, anything around matters of the heart, but also around matters of connecting to your creative flow. So I've used jasmine a fair bit, but I mean, I wouldn't say it's like one I've used more than anything else. I love lavender. I love lavender, but I don't know if that's an aesthetic thing. I'm going to say no. I don't really have a favorite herb for spellcraft because I kind of go to my library, my apothecary of herbs, and incorporate whatever makes sense for that ritual. Yeah, I guess I don't have a favorite herb. I'm probably going to watch this back later and remember that I do and be like yelling at myself while I watch. That's probably how that's going to happen. Anyway, oh my gosh. Okay, so we've talked about time of day, circle casting, herbs and crystals, which leaves today's prompt. How did you first come across or connect with your practice or connect with your craft, or how did you get started, basically. I've told this story before somewhere, I'm not sure where, possibly in my crystal video. I don't remember exactly how I became first interested, how I was first introduced to the topic of witchcraft. I do suspect that my interest began somewhere around the time that the movie The Craft came out, or possibly sooner. I do remember being in junior high, so I would have had to have been like 14 to 16 or so, and I remember having a small wooden box. This is all I remember, and to be fair, my memory is actually terrible, but I had a small wooden box, and in it I had several items which today would be clear occult items that I was trying to collect out of curiosity for the occult or for the craft. I'm not sure where that interest came from, or like what piqued it, or where it came from, but I just remember I was very much trying to keep this little box secret because I knew my parents would flip out. So I was definitely like tucking things away. I believe I had something related to divination in that box. I don't think it was a tarot deck, but I specifically remember trying to do some kind of divination, and I want to say it was some kind of casting, but I don't think it was runes. I really can't remember. I wish I could, but I had something. I wish I could remember. But I'd also grown up with a lot of really scary stories about sometimes people don't tell you a scary story, but they kind of allude to like really scary things. It was like that around stuff like Ouija boards. But I also remember a real fascination with and belief in magic from that age. I was really looking for a spiritual connection at that time in my life. I ended up exploring Christianity. I ended up having this very, what I think today would be a very pagan approach to Christianity, because my family weren't churchgoers. We didn't go to church every Sunday. I did go to a Christian camp in high school, I think between my 11th and 12th grade year. And through that process, I ended up sort of solidifying this very spiritual approach to Christianity, where I had, oh, my visor is making, well, who cares? I just am going to have this shadow line here. I remember building this very personal relationship with Jesus, and like having this very, almost like he was a guide, and I feel like I worked with him that way for a long time, but it really was probably only a couple of years. And then I remember moving out of my family home eventually, and at some point in that process, or around that same time, I was walking down a street. I kind of vaguely remember the town. I don't remember where in that town it was, but I remember I was walking down a street by myself, which at that time in my life already is strange, because I was, anyway, sidetracking. I was walking down the street, and I'm going to pull this down. It's very distracting. There we go. I feel like that's way less obnoxious. And I walked by this store, and I looked in the window. It was definitely a metaphysical store of some kind of witchy shop. I'm not sure what I don't remember what it was called or anything. And you know how you can look in a store window, and then you can see, sometimes based on how it's laid out, you can see all the way to the back where there's a counter where you would pay for your items. So it was a very open layout kind of store. And I looked in, and in the case at the back of the store where your checkout area was, there was what looked to me to be a glowing item, something that was literally glowing. And it was far enough back that it's not like it was getting hit by sunlight or something like that. And I almost felt like I heard something, and I don't know what that was. It's been so long, but I just remember going in and walking up to the case and just staring at this item. I don't think I even looked at anything else in the store. And I don't remember even talking to anybody. Obviously there was somebody there to take my money, but I bought this stone. And I talk about that stone. I know I talk about the stone a little bit in my crystal collection video, but it was basically an opalite egg. It wasn't even a natural stone. I don't know what that was about. I just know that I felt physically pulled to it. I felt like I had this very surreal, hard to explain kind of experience. And yeah, it was really, really trippy. So I purchased the stone, And it turned out that there was some sort of like book club slash learning group that was associated with this store. And they would meet once a week, I think on like a Wednesday or a Thursday evening, and they would talk about a particular book. And I ended up joining this book club. I made a good friend, and this book club was really like witchy light. Well, it wasn't witchy light, it was witchy. But this book club turned out to be associated with a pagan group, Wiccan group, that would hold public ritual. And so I ended up going to some of their public rituals. They were very traditional Wicca. So high priest, high priestess, there was processionals and recessionals and drum circles. And I just remember going to these events. I made a real good friend. We would go to them together, and it just became a part of my life. But I really began in that group setting, and somewhere along the way, there was some sort of scandal in that group, and that group sort of disbanded or fell apart. And I just remember after that going into a somewhat solitary experience, which is what I did for the next 5-ish years, I guess. And then eventually I stumbled into another group, and well, that's a long story. So that's sort of the origin for me. But I definitely had interest off and on throughout my not quite adult years, and then as an adult it pretty much kicked off pretty early. The thing that well, I'm gonna stop babbling. I'm gonna make myself stop because it's already 22 minutes long. I have places to be. But in any case, I'm sure I'll be talking a lot more about all of those experiences throughout the Eclectic Witchcraft series, which I keep mentioning just because it ties in to a lot of the things I'm talking about here. But anyway, that's it for catching up on the last, including today, 4 prompts, 31 Days of Witchcraft. Thank you again to Heather Carter for creating these prompts. I've been really enjoying watching these. I'm way behind. I think I'm in my playlist, in my like watch later list on YouTube. I think I'm around day 6 or 7 of watching other people's videos. But I'm getting my way through, and I've really been enjoying hearing about other people's experiences. It's been one of the most one of the highlights of my year, to be completely honest. It's been lovely to have that other side more present in my YouTube experience, because as much as I really wanted my channel to be tarot and witchcraft and self-worth, I feel like my focus has mostly been on tarot and more on self-worth, and I've been missing this piece, and this has just brought so much balance to my experience here on YouTube lately, and I've really been appreciating and loving it. So I'm hoping to keep that balance going in my own content going forward. We'll see. But I'm just really grateful for these prompts. I think they've just been really, really a nice touchstone for me. And I hope you guys are enjoying watching them as well. If you are participating in 31 Days of Witchcraft and you've never seen me comment on one of your videos and you're making videos, let me know down below. I'll make sure to go take a look, because I've been, again, really, really enjoying watching these. And I think some people may be participating in other ways, like commenting on videos, or they may be commenting somewhere else. But yeah, it's just been a really great way to see how other people's practices look and how their beliefs look. And as an eclectic witch, I find that very inspiring, because I'm constantly pulling things from different experiences and different people, and it feels very enriching. So thank you so much to everyone who's putting their thoughts and feelings out there. I think it's really, really valuable. Okay, that's enough gushing. I'm gonna go drink my coffee and begin the rest of my day. I hope you have a beautiful day or afternoon or evening or morning, wherever you might be, and I will see you in the next video. Remember to like, share, and subscribe if you are into doing those things. They really help the channel. And don't forget to hit the notification bell. That also really helps to make sure you don't miss my videos. I do create currently quite a lot of content, so if that bugs you, I totally get it, but that's also a good way so that things don't get lost in the shuffle. And remember, if you want to book a tarot reading with me, you can do that over at supportivetarot.com. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you later. Bye!